Good afternoon, everyone. This is the news with b.c.begley. I am your host, and it's Wednesday, September the 29th, 2025, and here are your top news stories for today. On Sunday morning, a gunman attacked the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, killing at least 4 people and injuring 8 others in what authorities have described as a targeted act of violence. The attacker, identified as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford of Burton, drove a truck into the chapel, set it on fire, and opened fire with an assault rifle before being shot and killed by police within minutes. Authorities are still searching the burned church for additional victims. Officials praised the bravery of the first responders and the congregants who shielded children and helped others escape. The FBI is leading the investigation and encourages the public to provide tips, the Detroit Free Press has reported. A family assistance center has been set up to support victims, relatives, and community members. President Donald Trump announced that he would send troops to Portland, Oregon, claiming the move was necessary to protect ICE facilities from domestic terrorists and Antifa. He authorized full force if necessary, but offered no details on timing or which troops would be deployed, and the White House has not issued a statement. The announcement comes amid heightened tensions following conservative activist Charlie Kirk's killing and President Trump's broader campaign against what he calls the radical left. Portland's ICE facility has been a frequent protest site, sometimes marked by violent clashes, Euronews has reported. President Trump has previously deployed National Guard and Marines to other cities and suggested similar actions for Chicago and Baltimore. Meanwhile, Tennessee's governor confirmed 150 National Guard troops will be sent to Memphis to help fight crime. President Donald Trump confirmed he will attend a large gathering of senior military leaders on Tuesday at Quantico Marine Corps Base, organized by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Trump described the event as a morale-boosting meeting focused on military successes. Hundreds of top generals and admirals worldwide were summoned without prior details, though officials say Hegseth intends to showcase accomplishments and outline his vision for the Defense Department. The unusual assembly comes as Hegseth pushes staffing cuts and rebrands the Pentagon as the Department of War, NBC News has reported. It also coincides with looming concerns over a possible government shutdown, with Trump set to meet congressional leaders on Monday to address the September 30th funding deadline. 3 people were killed and 5 others wounded on Saturday night in Southport, North Carolina, when a gunman opened fire from a boat at the American Fish Company, which is a waterfront bar. Police identified the suspect as 41-year-old Nigel Edge, a decorated Marine veteran, and arrested him on murder charges after he fled the scene by boat. Authorities believe the attack was premeditated, but that Edge had acted alone. Many victims were tourists, officials said, with one in critical condition, NPR has reported. Edge, who previously wrote about being severely wounded in Iraq, is being held without bond and is set to appear in court on Monday. The bar has closed indefinitely, and police are urging witnesses to come forward. New York Mayor Eric Adams announced Sunday that he is ending his independent re-election bid, citing financial struggles after the city's campaign finance board withheld millions in funds and ongoing media scrutiny. Once a frontrunner, Adams's popularity plummeted following federal corruption charges that were later dropped, leaving him polling far behind his rivals. His withdrawal reshapes the mayoral race, which now centers on Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Silva. Adams stopped short of endorsing other candidates, but warned against extremism in city politics, a veiled criticism of Mamdani. Cuomo praised Adams's record, while Mamdani framed Adams's tenure as a betrayal of working-class New Yorkers, NBC News has reported. Though Adams's name will still appear on the ballot, his exit could consolidate anti-Mamdani support, potentially boosting Cuomo. The election is set for November the 4th. NATO has stepped up air defenses after a surge in mysterious drone sightings over military bases and airports across Europe, with incidents reported in Denmark, Spain, Norway, France, and Germany. Denmark's largest air base and Copenhagen airport were repeatedly targeted, prompting a nationwide civilian drone ban during an upcoming EU summit. Authorities suspect Russian involvement, with ships from Moscow's Shadow Fleet linked to some of the incursions. NATO has deployed surveillance platforms and a German frigate in the Baltic Sea, while Denmark installed an advanced radar at its main airport. Germany is considering new laws to authorize the military to shoot down the drones, the U.S. Sun has reported. Leaders across Europe described the incidents as possible Russian hybrid attacks, and NATO allies are working on a large-scale drone wall defense system which would counter the ongoing threats. President Donald Trump is set to meet today with congressional leaders in what could be the final chance to avoid a government shutdown before funding expires on Tuesday night. Both parties remain at odds. Democrats want negotiations that include health care subsidies, while Republicans insist on first passing a stopgap funding bill. Senate Democrats face a tough choice: risk angering their base by supporting the GOP bill, or risk a shutdown that could damage the economy. The White House has warned agencies to prepare furloughs if no deal is reached, The Hill has reported. The meeting follows rising tensions, recalling the 2018 standoff that led to the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Moldova's pro-European Action and Solidarity Party secured a parliamentary majority in Sunday's election, winning about 50% of the vote in 55 out of 101 seats. The result strengthens President Maia Sandu's push for EU membership, despite alleged Russian interference, cyber attacks, and bomb threats during the vote. Opposition leader Igor Dodson's pro-Russia bloc came in second with 24%, but rejected the outcome and called for protest. European leaders praised Moldova's choice, while Moscow criticized the exclusion of pro-Russian parties and limited polling stations in Russia, The Guardian has reported. The victory boosts Sandu's EU agenda, though challenges remain, including reforms, economic pressures, and the unresolved issue of Transnistria. The U.S. and Israel are nearing a potential agreement on President Trump's Gaza peace plan, with an announcement expected after Trump meets with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday. Officials say negotiations have narrowed differences, though Hamas would still need to approve the deal. The White House is pressuring Netanyahu to accept, warning he could be blamed for prolonging the war and worsening humanitarian conditions if he refuses. Frustration with Netanyahu has grown among Trump's advisors, who view him as focused on domestic politics and beholden to ultra-nationalist allies rather than peace efforts, Axios has reported. The meeting could mark a turning point in Trump's relationship with Netanyahu, as the administration is seeking to showcase progress on ending the war and bolstering Trump's Middle East credibility. Denmark has temporarily banned all civilian drone flights until October the 3rd as it prepares to host an EU summit in Copenhagen. The move follows a wave of mysterious drone sightings over Danish military sites and airports, which authorities described as possible hybrid attacks. Sweden and France are sending anti-drone support, while NATO has boosted surveillance in the Baltic. Similar drone incidents have recently disrupted airports in Norway and Romania, and several NATO members accuse Russia of escalating hybrid operations, though Moscow denies any involvement, the BBC has reported. The ban carries penalties of fines of up to 2 years in prison. Here's a look at the live weather radar from the National Weather Service, and here is the National Weather Forecast for today. Some moisture associated with Imelda will support showers and thunderstorms along the southeast U.S. coast the next couple of days. A series of Pacific frontal systems will bring waves and showers and thunderstorms to portions of Northern California and the Pacific Northwest through midweek. Unseasonably warm temperatures continue from the northern Central Plains to the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. Thousands protested in Buenos Aires, demanding justice for 3 young women who were tortured and murdered, with authorities tying the crime to drug gangs. Their bodies were found buried 5 days after disappearing on September the 19th. Investigators say the killings were allegedly live-streamed to punish the women for breaking gang rules, though Meta disputes that it occurred on Instagram. 5 suspects, 3 men and 2 women, have been arrested, while the alleged Peruvian mastermind remains at large, the DW has reported. Families and demonstrators called for stronger protections for women, condemning the brutality as, quote, narco-femicide. Iran executed Bahman Choubi on Monday, labeling him, quote, one of the most important spies for Israel in Iran. This, according to the judiciary's news outlet, Mizan. Authorities said Choubi assisted Mossad in accessing government databases, creating breaches in Iranian data centers, and tracking the import of electronic equipment. His death sentence, upheld by the Supreme Court, was confirmed on charges of, quote, corruption on earth. The execution comes amid a spike in Iran's targeting of individuals accused of collaborating with Israel, with at least 10 such death sentences carried out in recent months, the Jerusalem Post has reported. The move reflects the deepening shadow conflict between Iran and Israel, which escalated into direct confrontation back in June when Israel conducted strikes inside of Iran, including operations involving Mossad commandos deployed within the country. Iranian authorities have framed these executions as part of a broader effort to counter espionage and protect national security. A stampede at a political rally in India for a popular actor turned politician, Joseph Vijay, left 40 people dead, including 9 children, and injured at least 124 others, officials have said. The crowd of tens of thousands became uncontrollable after Vijay arrived 6 hours late, and chaos ensued when his vehicle began moving. Authorities cited indiscipline and have launched an official probe. The chief minister announced compensation for victims' families, the Associated Press has reported. Vijay and the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, expressed sorrow over the tragedy. Stampedes are common in India at large gatherings. Russian forces launched a massive drone and missile attack across Ukraine on Sunday, killing at least 4 people, including a 12-year-old girl, and injuring at least 70 others. The strike primarily targeted Kyiv, though other regions, including Zaporizhia, Sumy, Chernihiv, and Odessa, were also hit. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted most of the 595 drones and 48 missiles that were fired. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack as evidence of Russia's intent to continue the war, calling for international pressure, Fox News has reported. The assault comes after President Donald Trump shifted his stance, urging Ukraine to reclaim all lost territory rather than negotiate concessions. Snapback sanctions were reimposed on Iran on Sunday by France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, citing Tehran's failure to meet its nuclear commitments under the JCPOA. The mechanism allows UN sanctions lifted under the 2015 deal to be restored before their permanent expiration of a signatory is deemed non-compliant. European nations have pressed Iran for evidence of cooperation with inspections, resumption of U.S. talks, and accountability for its enriched uranium stockpiles. Iran criticized the move as a, quote, abuse of process, and recalled its envoys to the 3 countries, while also limiting IAEA access to nuclear facilities, CNN has reported. The sanctions target Iran's arms, missile, oil, and financial sectors, though Europe emphasized that diplomacy is not over. Sir Keir Starmer condemned Reform UK's proposal to scrap indefinite leave to remain as racist and immoral, arguing it would target people living legally in the UK and harm communities. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage wants migrants to reapply for visas under stricter rules, while Labour plans only to double the period for ILR from 5 to 10 years. Starmer said supporters of reform are largely frustrated voters, not racist, and called for party unity to counter the challenge. Public opinion is divided, with polls showing 58% opposed to removing ILR for those who already hold it, while 44% support ending it as a policy, the BBC has reported. At Labour's conference, Starmer emphasized the need for time to address 14 years of conservative failures and reaffirmed the party's manifesto commitments, including a cautious approach to taxes. North Korea and China agreed to strengthen bilateral ties and oppose hegemonianism and unilateralism, signaling alignment against the United States. The meeting of their foreign ministers in Beijing followed the first Kim-Xi summit in over 6 years, which included a joint appearance with Russian President Vladimir Putin at a military parade. North Korea emphasized close cooperation with China in multilateral affairs, while China stressed strategic communication and regional influence. Analysts note that Kim is seeking stronger ties with China amid his country's growing engagement with Russia and in preparation for potential shifts after the Ukraine conflict, the Associated Press has reported. Attention now focuses on China's possible delegation to North Korea's 80th Workers' Party anniversary, expected to include a military parade, showcasing weapons targeting the United States and its allies. Israel continues its offensive in Gaza, with tanks advancing through central and western Gaza City, and airstrikes killing at least 77 people in the past 24 hours. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have tried to evacuate, but many remain trapped due to illness, disability, or lack of transport. Hamas called for a temporary halt in airstrikes to locate 2 Israeli hostages, while Israel and President Donald Trump are reportedly working on a ceasefire plan. An international aid flotilla, including activists like Greta Thunberg, is en route to Gaza to challenge the Israeli blockade and deliver humanitarian aid, The Guardian has reported. The conflict, triggered by Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel, has killed over 66,000 people in Gaza, mostly civilians, and escalated violence in the West Bank. A typhoon has killed at least 11 people in central and northern Vietnam, damaged or destroyed hundreds of homes, and left dozens missing or injured. The storm caused flooding, washed away bridges, caused power outages, and forced nearly 30,000 people to evacuate, while flights were delayed or canceled. This typhoon follows Super Typhoon Ragasa, which killed at least 28 people in the Philippines and Taiwan last week, and caused widespread damage in China. Rescuers are searching for missing fishermen, and authorities have warned residents to stay indoors as heavy rains are expected in some areas, the BBC has reported. Swiss voters narrowly approved a voluntary electronic ID system, with 50.4% in favor and 49.6% opposed. Unlike a rejected 2021 proposal, the new digital IDs will be government-controlled, stored only on individual smartphones, and optional. The system allows verification of specific details, like age or nationality, without compromising other personal data, aiming to simplify bureaucratic procedures. Supporters praise its convenience, while opponents remain concerned about privacy and potential misuse of the data, the BBC has reported. The vote comes amid growing international interest in digital IDs, including the United Kingdom's plans for a mandatory system for employment. Today is September the 29th, 2025, and on this day in history, in the year 1789, under the new U.S. Constitution, Congress passed legislation that established a regular army consisting of 1,000 enlisted men and officers. In the year 1938, leaders from Britain, France, Germany, and Italy signed the Munich Agreement. And in the year 1954, during Game 1 of the World Series, Willie Mays made a running over-the-shoulder catch of a deep fly ball, a moment simply known as the catch. Also, September the 29th is National Coffee Day. Alright, it's 37 past the hour and a quick market update. The S&P 500 is up 0.25%. The Nasdaq is up 0.51%. Gold is up 1.78%. Oil is down, 3.54%. Bitcoin is up 1.67%. And the Dow Jones is down 0.17%. And now here's your national news headlines for today. President Trump has directed 200 Oregon National Guard troops to be deployed to Portland for 60 days to protect federal personnel and property, including ICE facilities. The deployment, confirmed by the Pentagon, is intended to deter rampant lawlessness and enable federal law enforcement to carry out their duties safely. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield has criticized the move, saying local officials can manage public safety without federal interference, and calling the deployment, quote, not normal. President Trump cited threats from Antifa and other domestic terrorists as justification on his Truth Social platform, The Hill has reported. Similar National Guard deployments have recently occurred in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., amid concerns about urban unrest. A stowaway was found dead Sunday in the landing gear of an American Airlines flight arriving in Charlotte, North Carolina from Europe. Maintenance crews discovered the individual around 9 a.m., and police confirmed that the person had died on the scene. American Airlines and Charlotte Airport said that they are cooperating with the investigation and expressed condolences. Aviation experts note that stowing away in a plane's wheel well is extremely dangerous due to freezing temperatures and a lack of oxygen at high altitudes, making survival almost impossible, ABC News has reported. While rare cases of survival exist, such incidents are exceptionally uncommon and pose serious risks to both stowaways and flight safety. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe signed a new congressional map on Sunday, splitting the Kansas City area district held by the Democrat Emanuel Cleaver II and adding rural Republican-leaning areas. The move, part of a wave of mid-decade redistricting in states like Texas and California, has drawn criticism from Democrats as a partisan power grab. The Republican-controlled legislature passed the map, but it remains vulnerable to ballot initiative or court challenges under the state constitution. Cleaver has pledged to run for re-election and condemned the map as unpopular, Roll Call has reported. With recent House elections decided by narrow margins, the redistricting could influence control of Congress next year. President Donald Trump will meet Monday with the top 4 congressional leaders to discuss funding the government ahead of a September 30th deadline to avoid a shutdown. House Republicans passed a short-term continuing resolution to fund the government through November the 21st, but it failed in the Senate due to Democratic opposition, where 60 votes are needed to pass. Democrats want to make permanent certain ACA tax cuts and reverse GOP health care program cuts, while Republicans want to fund the government first and negotiate later. Without action, government funding will expire at midnight on October the 1st, potentially delaying non-essential services and leaving hundreds of thousands of federal workers unpaid, NPR has reported. The White House has instructed agencies to prepare for permanent layoffs, a move that Democrats have called mafia-style blackmail, aimed at pressuring lawmakers. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe said he has not been contacted by federal authorities in the investigation into former FBI Director James Comey. McCabe expressed surprise, noting his account of events before the 2016 election is cited in Comey's indictment. Comey was charged with making a false statement and obstructing a congressional proceeding related to testimony about a leak to the Wall Street Journal. McCabe said he never saw Comey authorize anyone else to leak information and cannot confirm the allegations, The Hill has reported. The charges stem from conflicting accounts between Comey and McCabe regarding leaks and communications with reporters during the 2016 Clinton investigation. Des Moines School District Superintendent Ian Roberts was placed on administrative leave after federal immigration agents detained him for being in the United States illegally and subject to a 2024 removal order. Roberts fled briefly into a wooded area before being apprehended, and the district is now being managed by the associate superintendent. School officials said background checks during his 2023 hiring and licensing did not reveal any citizenship or work authorization issues. Roberts, who was born to Guyanese immigrant parents and competed for Guyana in the 2000 Olympics, has retained legal representation, CBS News has reported. The Iowa Department of Education is reviewing the district's hiring procedures to ensure employees are authorized to work in the United States. The FBI clarified that 274 plainclothes FBI agents were at the U.S. Capitol during the January 6, 2021 riot, sent in after the violence began to assist overwhelmed police with crowd control. Director Kash Patel criticized former FBI Director Christopher Wray for not disclosing the presence of agents during multiple congressional testimonies. President Donald Trump claimed the agents acted improperly and demanded transparency about their identities and their actions, alleging potential wrongdoing. The Inspector General Michael Horowitz reported that while FBI informants were present, they were not allowed to incite violence or enter the Capitol, and the agents were performing emergency support, not undercover operations, Fox News has reported. Many agents were reportedly unhappy with the crowd control assignment, which contradicted FBI protocols and training, and Patel emphasized the need for truthful testimony from agency leadership. An Arizona jury found Cleophas Cooksey Jr. guilty of 8 2017 murders, making him one of the state's most prolific serial killers, with the sentencing phase for potential death penalty expected to continue until December. Over 3 weeks in late 2017, Cooksey killed 9 people in scattered locations throughout Phoenix, using theft, revenge, and other personal motives, though one suspected victim he was not charged with. He was arrested in December of 2017 at his mother's home with blood on his hands, and police linked him to multiple shootings using ballistics, DNA, cell phone records, and GPS evidence. Cooksey's attorneys argued that the ballistic evidence was unreliable, but prosecutors presented a broader pattern tying him to the killings, USA Today has reported. Victims' families reacted emotionally to the verdict, and prosecutors emphasized Cooksey's central role in the murders despite not offering a motive for each individual crime. President Trump suggested Sunday that the Department of Justice may be investigating former FBI Director Christopher Wray, criticizing his handling of the January 6 Capitol riot and labeling his actions as inappropriate. The comments came 3 days after former FBI Director James Comey was indicted on charges of making false statements to Congress and obstructing its investigation. Trump repeated claims that the FBI secretly placed 274 plainclothes agents in the Capitol crowd during the riot. Wray, who was appointed by Trump and resigned under the Biden administration, previously testified that the FBI sources had no role in orchestrating the violence and defended following facts over politics, Axios has reported. Trump denied having a, quote, list of enemies to prosecute, but suggested other officials could face scrutiny, while Wray's representatives did not comment. A mass shooting in Southport, North Carolina, left 3 dead and 5 injured after suspect Nigel Edge, 40 years old, allegedly opened fire from a boat at the American Fish Company waterfront bar. Police now say that the attack was, quote, highly premeditated, with Edge targeting the location before fleeing and later being apprehended by the U.S. Coast Guard on Oak Island. Edge, who identifies as a combat veteran, claiming PTSD, faces 3 counts of first-degree murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 5 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Victims included out-of-town vacationers, with at least 1 hospitalized in critical condition, and officials continue to investigate the crime scene, the Associated Press has reported. Edge is being held without bond and is scheduled for his first court appearance on Monday, while authorities are still gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses. Hey, I hope everyone's enjoying the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all our news. And now here is some biz, tech, and space news for today. Starbucks plans to cut around 900 U.S. jobs and close its worst performing stores in North America, the UK, Switzerland, and Austria as part of a cost-saving and turnaround strategy. CEO Brian Nicole said the closures aim to improve customer experience, reduce wait times, and revive sales, while the company still plans to open 80 new stores in the United Kingdom and 150 others across the EMEA. The U.S. market has seen declining sales, falling for the 6th consecutive quarter at established stores, amid rising competition and a declining brand perception. Starbucks' restructuring includes store remodels, simplified menus, and staff reductions, but has drawn criticism from Workers United, which represents over 600 U.S. baristas and opposes the company's lack of input from employees, the BBC has reported. Analysts note that despite aggressive measures, Starbucks faces mounting pressure from rivals and ongoing unionization efforts. European stocks rose on Monday as investors weighed the risk of a potential U.S. government shutdown. The Stoxx 600 gained 0.2%. The FTSE 100 was up 0.6%, while Germany's DAX was flat and France's CAC 40 rose 0.1%. Lufthansa shares climbed 1.3% after reporting strong free cash flow, earnings targets, and plans to cut 4,000 administrative jobs. Pharmaceutical stocks also advanced, led by Belgium's UCB and GSK on CEO changes and drug trial successes, while Genmab fell 3% following an $8 billion acquisition announcement. Spain's inflation rose to 3% in September, and EU economic sentiment data is due out on Monday. In the United States, President Trump is meeting Congress on funding, while the UK's Labour Conference continues in Liverpool, CNBC has reported. Asian markets were broadly higher, with Sony Financial Group soaring 36% after spinning off from Sony Group. Jaguar Land Rover plans to gradually resume production after a cyber attack forced a shutdown on September the 1st. The engine facility is expected to restart on the 6th of October, with other UK plants following in a phased approach. Full production may take several weeks to resume, the BBC has reported. JLR said its recovery program is underway, working with cybersecurity experts, the UK National Cybersecurity Center, and law enforcement to ensure a safe and secure restart. Nemours Children's Hospital is using a first-of-its-kind medical robot to assist in spinal surgeries, making procedures faster, more precise, and aiding quicker patient recovery. The robot, the first of its kind on the East Coast, helps surgeons accurately place rods and screws in the spine, avoiding vital structures. A 16-year-old who had scoliosis said she's now pain-free 2 months after surgery and able to return to activities like running, CBS News has reported. Doctors are using the robot for a range of spinal procedures to improve safety and outcomes. SpaceX completed its final September launch on Sunday, sending 28 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit on Starlink 1120 mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. The Falcon 9 rocket, using booster B-1063 on its 28th flight, lifted off at 7:04 p.m. local time and successfully landed on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You about 8.5 minutes later. This marked SpaceX's 16th launch of the month, tying its record for most launches in a single month, and its 124th Falcon 9 launch of 2025, Spaceflight Now has reported. The mission also represents the company's 88th Starlink deployment this year. Israeli researchers at Tel Aviv University have developed a muon-based detection system that can X-ray the ground, revealing hidden underground spaces at archaeological sites without excavation. Tested at Jerusalem's City of David, the technology uses cosmic ray murons, which penetrate deep into the earth to map cavities and tunnels. The detectors confirmed known underground structures and discovered previously unknown ones, the Times of Israel has reported. Researchers aim to create portable, low-cost systems that archaeologists worldwide can use to plan digs with 3D maps of subterranean spaces, potentially transforming the study of ancient sites. Okay, everyone, that is our show for today. I hope you all have enjoyed it. I will see you all tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for another episode. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful day.